Welcome to the Legendary Business Owners Star Interview. Today we're talking with legendary author and entrepreneur John Warrillow. John is the founder of 5 companies and the best-selling author of Built to Sell, Creating a Business That Can Thrive Without You, which was recognized by both Fortune and Inc. magazines as one of the best books of 2011. His most recent book, The Automatic Customer, Creating a Subscription Business in Any Industry, was published in 2015 and is what we're going to talk about today. Now, in my opinion, building a subscription model into your business is the most important thing you can do today to ensure your business survives and to increase profitability. Does that sound about right?
Sure does. Sounds great.
Excellent. Early on in The Automatic Customer, John talks about the main benefits of a subscription model. And I tell you, this will expand your mind when you think about them. So what we're going to do today is simply go through those 8 main benefits, and then you can make up your mind whether or not you think it's worth changing at least part of your business to a subscription model. So my first question is, why does the subscription model increase the value of your business?
Well, it comes down to when an acquirer looks at your business, they are going to, for them, it's the starting line of a race, right? For you, it's the finishing line of a marathon. For them, it's the starting line. And they're going to really want to understand, how does the business continue when you, the owner, leave? And they're mindful that in many cases, the owner is the big rainmaker for the business, and therefore much of the revenue goes when the owner goes. And so the more recurring revenue you can demonstrate that you've got, the more confidence the buyer will have that the earnings are sustainable. So it makes a big difference in the value of your business. Like, for example, with the security company these days, the guys who protect our homes and our businesses, they have 2 forms of revenue. They've got the installation revenue, where they come and install the system, and they've also got the recurring revenue called monitoring revenue. And they'll pay about 75 cents for every dollar of installation revenue, because it's not really stuff they want, but they'll pay more than $2 for every dollar of recurring revenue. And so it's just a silly little example, but it makes a profound difference on the value of your business.
Makes complete sense. So here's a good one. Why does a $29 sale beat a $4,524 sale?
Well, beyond the fact that it's bigger, I think you're referring to a passage in the book where we talk about H. Bloom, which is in the business of selling flowers. And if you look at a high street flower retail shop today, I mean, it's a terrible business, right? You've got inventory that dies. You've got to have expensive high street space. And it's very lumpy. You never know how many customers are going to come in, so you don't know how many flowers to buy. And so these 2 guys called Sanyu Panda and Brian Burkhart took a look at the business of selling flowers, and they said, we're going to do it totally differently. We're going to do it on a recurring revenue basis. And what we're going to do is target those flower buyers who buy flowers regularly. And so those are restaurants, spas, hotels who buy them on a regular recurring cadence. And we're going to send them a professional grade invoice. We're going to send them the same bouquet every 2 weeks, get rid of the old ones. And the average lifetime value of an H. Bloom subscriber today is more than $4,000, compared to a typical transaction in a high street flower shop of about $29 in America. So, it just is a good example of a business that is typically not one we think of having any recurring revenue to it, the business of selling flowers. But one company really remade the way they thought about it by looking at a subscription model.
What a difference that's made. So how does a subscription model smooth out demand?
Well, if you look at the H. Bloom example, typical flower store in America will throw out more than 50% of its inventory every year. I mean, it's just, they don't know how many flowers to buy. They don't know how many flowers customers are going to walk into the shop, and so they overpurchase, and they have to throw out a lot of their inventory. And at H. Bloom, because they have people buying on subscription, regular cadence, they know how many customers they've got. They only buy the number of flowers for the number of customers they've got. Their spoilage rate is a fraction of the typical flower store. So their spoilage rate, the number of flowers they throw out, is around 2% a month. And so, because of the predictability of the business model, because you know how many customers you have, it just makes it much easier to plan your business. Everything from how much inventory to buy to how many staff to hire for the month.
Yes. Yep. Also, the next thing on this list, it talks about market research.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a little bit Big Brother, but you've probably had the experience when you subscribe to something and all of a sudden they start knowing more about you. So at Netflix, for example, if you're a subscriber to Netflix and you start watching, I don't know, Homeland, they're probably going to figure out that, hey, this guy likes kind of action, adventure, sort of political stuff. So maybe MI5 would be a good thing to recommend to them. And they're using, obviously, big data and lots of algorithms behind the scenes. But that research is so important. And again, 20, 30 years ago, companies would have to hire market research firms. We were in the market research business in a company that I used to own, so I know about it well. And you might spend 5 or 6 figures to figure out what your customers wanted. And now with the subscription model, because you've got a direct relationship with them, you're billing them once a month, you're watching what they're consuming in your subscription, you're able to sort of figure out what they value and what frustrations they have and so forth.
And since we're talking about money, one of the big problems, certainly in my earlier businesses, was getting paid. So we're talking about accounts receivable here, and this makes a big difference, right?
You're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of businesses still depend on, the old classic, sending an invoice, 30, 60 days later, you get a check. And of course, that can be very frustrating, especially if you've got small customers who are extending your payment terms. They're taking 60 or 90 days, and then you're having to call them and remind them to pay, and maybe you've got to call them 2 or 3 times. So you're employing an accounts payable clerk, an accounts receivable clerk, and it might, that's a salary, obviously. And if your customers are relatively small, we're not talking about tens or hundreds of thousands of dollar invoices. If we're talking hundreds of dollars, it can be a very expensive way to collect money. And so with the subscription model, typically what you're doing is charging on a credit card. So you're taking the life of the customer. You're saying maybe it's a $1,000 product. Instead of charging $1,000 like with Microsoft Office, for example, they now charge a little bit every month or a little bit every year, and you've automatically got those customers paying you on a credit card.
In advance.
And then the credit card has to worry about, the credit card company has to worry about collecting.
Yes, yeah. Now, next up on this, of course, is stickiness. This we always talk about it in terms of websites, etc. But stickiness, actually, just in a business in general, this is kind of pretty good, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, if you take a subscription model, there are 9 different ones we write about in the book, but many of them just basically what you're doing is you're making your customer loyalty explicit as opposed to implied. So, for example, if I trudge down to the local high street pet food retailer and buy a bag of dog food once a month because I've got a hungry dog in the house, that's one business model, right? But then that pet food store has got to advertise to me. They've got to try to convince me to come in and not buy from another retailer or not take advantage of an offer I've gotten. Whereas instead, if you say, look, we'll send you a bag of dog food once a month. That way you don't have to trudge down here to pick it up and take it home. We'll just send it to you once a month. And you can just pay us on a regular recurring basis. And if you ever want to stop, let us know. All of a sudden, you've opted the customer in as opposed to forcing them to make the transaction, and you've sort of locked in their future loyalty. So they're not going to be as promiscuous. They're not going to look around when you've got an offer for dog food from a competing place because they know that they've got dog food coming, and so that part of their brain that searches out new offers just gets turned off.
You just make it a lot easier, basically.
You're making it a lot easier, and again, stickier because customers, if they know they've got a supplier locked in, if you've got razor blades coming from Dollar Shave Club, or Amazon's going to send you laundry detergent every 2 weeks, you just stop looking around for offers and you just stop thinking about that as a product because you've got it covered.
And that leads on nicely to this other strange thing. In ordinary businesses, you try your hardest to sell one product and then they buy it and that's it, and they've got to think again about selling them another one. This stickiness kind of entices them to buy more, right?
You're absolutely right. I mean, that's one of the big reasons Amazon Prime exists. Amazon Prime has 40 million customers worldwide, and in and of itself, if you just took it as a line item on the Amazon P&L, it would represent $4 billion of revenue. A huge business by any measure, but it really severely underestimates the value of Amazon Prime to Amazon because what they found is that when Amazon customers subscribe to Prime, it makes them more loyal customers, and they start buying broader and broader sets of products from Amazon. So they pony up their $99 a year, or whatever it is in the UK, 79 pounds or whatever, and it makes them more likely to search out other products because they want to get their money's worth, but also because Amazon customers then, they have a relationship with Amazon. They've got the free shipping. Amazon's got those credit card. It just makes them, there are many, many reasons why customers buy much more once they become Prime customers. For example, typical Amazon customer spends about $500 a year with Amazon. Typical Prime subscriber will spend more than $1,500. So between $500 to $1,500 is the delta. So again, once you've got customers subscribing, I think what you'll find is that not only are they buying your primary product that they've subscribed to, but it makes them much more inclined to buy adjacent products from you as well.
Makes utter sense. You also talk about a subscription model, recession proofing your business. How does that work?
Well, again, once you've got a customer on a recurring basis, it's not immediately obvious that your recurring expense, a relatively small expense, is one that should be cut in the case of a recurring or a recession. Give you a good example of that. The guys at Tri-State Elevator are an elevator business, and when they started out, this is a company based in New York City. When they started out, they started out in the business of installing elevators. So, Trump was going to build a new tower. They'd install the elevator. And unfortunately, it's a very lumpy business. When things are good, times are good, financing is free, they were busy because buildings were being built. But as soon as the spigot gets turned off on financing, and this happened back in the 2001 recession, all building gets stopped. And if you're in the business of installing elevators, you very quickly run short of cash and in many cases go out of business. And that's almost what happened to Tri-State. Well, they came through the 2001 recession and they said, never again are we going to be so exposed to economic uncertainty. And so what they decided to do was make a different business model. And they decided to, instead of install elevators, they decided to start servicing elevators on a subscription contract. So instead of installing them, they would say, hey, look, get Otis to install your elevator. We'll come and just measure and monitor it. We'll make sure the lights are on and that the placard's up to date and that your registration's up to date and that the pulleys are greased, and everything that you need to do to safely maintain an elevator we'll handle. And that's a smaller bit of revenue, but a steady amount of revenue. And when Tri-State hit the 2008 global economic recession, they had 15 staff. They didn't have to lay off a single employee because they had all these service contracts in place, and people need to continue to service the elevators regardless of the economic environment. And so it's just another example of how having kind of these steady, automatic, recurring subscribers makes your business so much more reliable and ultimately more recession-proof.
So there we have it. That's 8 really important reasons for introducing subscription, the subscription model into your business. And I also know in your book, as you said earlier, you actually outline 9 different models. I mean, most people in business are used to thinking maybe about 9 overall models, but this is 9 separate just subscription models. So all I can say, John Warrillow, is thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I was going to say you're very welcome. And I just for your folks, your viewers and listeners, if they are interested in learning the 9 subscription models, by all means, you can get the book. But you can also go to automaticcustomer.com, and there's a little an ebook essentially that will show you the 9 models, who each one is best suited for. And one of the goals, Quentin, for this book was really to try to say that you don't have to be in software to have a subscription revenue base. You can create recurring revenue in any business, whether you're a plumber, a dog walker, a manufacturer, a high street retailer. And so that was our goal, is to really demonstrate that you can create recurring revenue in virtually any industry. And that's really what we hope those 9 models show people.
Oh, that's fab. And it's free, right?
It's free to download the ebook, yeah.
Can't beat that. And it's automaticcustomer.com?
That's correct.
Just like on this book. Fabulous. John Warrillow, thank you very much.
Thanks, Quentin.